Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 108, featuring top 5 Crusher episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are jumping back into our series of character deep dive episodes. But we're doing this one with a little bit of a TrekRanks twist. We're doing our first multi-layer character episode with the top 5 Crusher episodes, which is intentionally vague, and we're covering all the Crushers in one episode. So Jack Crusher, Wesley Crusher, Beverly Crusher, whatever you want to do, however you want to break it down, we're covering the Crushers in tonight's episode. And helping us dive into this deep topic, first up, returning for her second TrekRanks go-around. She's a huge TNG fan, hailing us from the Vegas Expanse. It's Amy Nelson. Welcome back, Amy.
Hello. Thank you so much for asking me back. I'm so excited. I just can't believe it.
Podcaster extraordinaire. We're going to talk some TNG. And our second guest today is making his TrekRanks debut and connecting to us via subspace from my hometown, San Diego Prime. It's Christos Giannaris. Did I get that right, Christos?
That was really good.
All right.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today.
All right. Well, it's great to have you here, Christos. And for our first time guest, we'd like to do a quick Trek origin story. So what's your Trek backstory and how'd you get into Trek? Are you a completist? Have you seen it all? I can't wait to hear this.
I'd like to think I'm a completist. My earliest Trek memories are Wrath of Khan. My dad showed me that movie when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. So the Trek movies of the original cast, and then some TOS, and I really got into it when I was about 10 years old, and this show called The Next Generation premiered, and that really took me through those formidable years of 10 to 17. And I've never looked back. I think I've pretty much seen everything at least once, but I'm really a big fan of the TNG, Voyager, DS9, and then of course Disco and Picard and all that is just great.
I love it. So, and I know, speaking to Amy, that you're a big Crusher fan and a big TNG fan. So
she's my favorite.
So this is perfect. I love it. All right, let's get into our quick TrekRanks recalibration.
Let's start with something small, like a recalibration of the EPS manifolds.
As regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 of the TrekRanks charters that we love Trek. We love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just our excuse to talk about Star Trek, because as Mr. Spock himself has said, our show is all about
infinite diversity in infinite combinations, symbolizing the elements that create truth and beauty.
No wrong answers, not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things we love about Trek, and we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise, and the Kelvin timeline, and Discovery, Short Trek, Star Trek Picard, Lower Decks. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast. And a final reminder that we use episodes as a shorthand term, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
I've boosted power to the communications bandwidth.
We appreciate that, Mr. Kim. You can find TrekRanks on Subspace at TrekRanks.com. You can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can also leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, so Amy and Christos, why don't you guys let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace? Amy.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. I host a couple of Star Trek podcasts called Galaxy Class, which is specifically TNG, and All Good Things, which is about all of Star Trek. So you can find me there.
Excellent. And Christos, how can people talk Trek with you?
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Greek Geek SD. That's Greek Geek SD as in San Diego. And I'm usually talking about Trek, Wonder Woman, vegan stuff and Belinda Carlisle. So I'm all over the place.
Oh, I love it. Are you a Black Mirror fan, Christos?
Yes.
San Junipero. Just
yes.
So amazing. I always think of Belinda Carlisle now when I think of, or I always think of Black Mirror now when I think of Belinda Carlisle, which is odd to say the least. All right, let's get into our level 1 diagnostic to get into today's show.
Run a level 1 diagnostic series. Come.
All right, really quick for this week's diagnostics cycle, I just want to cover a couple of quick areas for our character shows. So just to reset, we're being a little tricky for this topic by labeling it just top 5 Crusher episodes. So again, that can mean Jack Crusher, Wesley Crusher, Beverly Crusher. You can break it down however you want with a mix of those characters or a focus on just one. You can pick Felicia Howard if you want. So it's up to you. Second, this is our 12th character episode. So I'm going to go through our quick roll call. We've done Kirk in our premiere episode, our NX00. We did Icheb as a last-second addition to our WTF moments when that one was about to drop, and WTF moment happened to Icheb. And then the others are Data, Cisco, Kira, T'Pol, Neelix, Nog, Odo, Picard, and Janeway in our 100th episode. So this is our 12th character episode, and maybe 12 and 13 combined since we're combining Beverly and Wesley. And finally, just a reminder, as part of our normal character episodes, we like to ask each of our guests one word that best describes that character. So let's do this with Beverly and Wesley, played by the great Gates McFadden, and of course, Will Wheaton as young Wesley Crusher. So we're going to get one word from Amy and Christos that they think best describes those characters. So let's start with you, Amy. What do you got for Beverly and then Wesley?
All right. For Beverly, my one word is warm-hearted. She has the best bedside manner out of all the doctors, hands down. She cares about her patients. Like, warm-hearted to me encapsulates Beverly. For Wesley, he is curious, which is one of the traits that I love in my students. And if I had a student like Wesley, I'd be so happy and like posing questions to him and getting him excited about learning. He's already there, so he is very curious.
Those are perfect. They both fit right into some of my picks, especially that warm-hearted. That's so true about Beverly's bedside manner. Christos, how about you for one word for Beverly and Wesley?
Okay, one word for Beverly. I'm going to say amazing, because there's not, as you'll see in some of my picks today and hopefully our discussion, I don't think there's anything she can't do. Mm-hmm. And that is a change. Recently, I was asked that question and I said competent, but in rewatching a lot of episodes lately, I'm like, wow, what can't she do? So amazing Beverly. And for Wesley, little on the negative side, I'm going to say nepotism, because Wesley is amazing. He does some crazy good things, but if he didn't have a little bit of people pulling the strings for him, I mean, he'd still be waiting to get into Starfleet.
Okay, that's
true.
How many 15-year-old ensigns do you have on the flagship of the Federation?
I mean, that is hilarious. All right, so for me, my word for Beverly is uncompromising, and I mean that in absolutely the best way possible, because it doesn't mean stubborn or she can't see someone else's point of view, but because she does both. I mean, she's very open, but she's uncompromising when it comes to her patients and the job and making the right calls, and she makes the tough calls, and she's just brilliant. And then for Wesley, it's funny because I was actually thinking of using the word deserving, which would have been the exact opposite of nepotism. But I didn't. I went with ingenuity, because I just think it fits, and it's a little bit along the lines of curious, but he's just clever and inventive and pretty resourceful in terms of, I mean, the guy went through a lot with losing his dad at a young age, and then kind of not really having a childhood because of his abilities and kind of being thrust into the limelight. So I like his ingenuity. Okay, let's see how these words play into our prime directives and our picks, and we'll do our prime directives right now.
But what you're proposing is exactly the kind of tampering the Prime Directive prohibits.
Okay, so Amy and Christos want to ask you guys about your prime directives for this topic. But first, just a reminder for everybody that we call this top 5 episodes for the character, but that can be defined however you want it. You can do major episodes for that character. Or you could just focus on small moments that you love that maybe occur in an episode that's not really featuring that character that much. So we call it episodes, but you can break it down however you want. So Amy, let's start with you. How did you define your prime directive and finalizing your picks for the Crushers?
Okay, so for my prime directive, because I didn't do this last time, and so I wanted to really try and push myself and be a little bit different. And so I took your hint of gathering a bunch of small little parts of an episode to make it its own category. So I'm very excited to do that with one of the Crushers. And I did want to include both. So I will be including Beverly and Wesley in my picks.
Excellent. Okay. And Christos, how about you? How did you break it down?
Well, first and foremost, I kind of didn't want to completely grab the obvious. There's some very obvious choices out there when you talk about Beverly for specifically. And so I wanted to mix it up a little bit. And I do have a choice in here that is very much Beverly and Wesley too, but I did focus more on Beverly Crusher.
I figured that out from your your breakdown words, which is fantastic. And I did the same thing. So my starting point was I was going to get clever and try and do all 5 of my picks as kind of double picks, where it's moments for both of them together, or if maybe Wesley and Jack, or something where there was at least 2 Crushers in each pick. But as I was working through my list, I came up with a few that I was just like, it's not really a double, but I just really want to talk about that one, so I'm not going to cut it. So I have a mix of those, some of the double dips, and maybe even one triple Crusher moment. Ooh. And then a few episodes, and then I split it up. I tried to split it up evenly between the 2 main Crushers. Yeah, I think, and then, normally I do the smaller moments as much as the full episodes. I think for this one, I leaned more towards doing full episodes about those characters. But even then, I'm all over the place. So that's basically what I'm saying. Okay, so let's get first Kudekaton in here to introduce us to the new order of things.
It'll be alphas like us that determine the future of this quadrant. That will be the new order of things.
Thank you, First Kudekaton. And as always, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll reveal our top 5 Crusher episode and the specific reasons we're highlighting it. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Amy, let's kick this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 Crusher episodes?
All right. 5 words and a hashtag. A penny for your thoughts. Hashtag great minds think alike. That would be attached.
Oh, of course.
I really love this episode, really for 2 main points. The first one is that Beverly has this fear of heights, and we've heard about it all through the series, and she has to face it, and she does it so well. She trusts Picard, so she's using him to help her, and she just conquers her fear. And I love that. That's so inspirational. I mean, and she really didn't have a choice. I mean, I guess she could have stayed there by herself, but she chose to conquer that fear. The second why I love this is right at the very end. And Picard and Beverly are in his quarters. They're sharing breakfast or tea or something. And Picard's like, well, maybe we should explore this relationship that we have been developing over the past 7 years. We're good friends. All of this going through his mind. And she turns him down and is like, And I think in my mind, because I do like them together, but I think the timing wasn't right. And she was strong enough to say, yeah, it's not going to work. Maybe we should be afraid. Maybe we shouldn't. And there's lots of reasons why they should remain friends. They have a lot of history together and might get too complicated. Or she doesn't want to lose him as a friend if they do veer down this romantic path. I just think in this episode, Beverly is in control of her life. She's making decisions that are best for her. And for me, as a single woman, very inspirational. And I love her in Attached.
I love this pick. It's so good. My favorite thing about it is always just how much it reveals. Just we finally get that Picard Crusher payoff episode after seven. This is season 7. So just to finally get them connecting and talking through their emotions without having to kind of go either way. And obviously, the ending is, as you just described, is so great with Beverly. Christos, what's your take on Attached?
This is a really good episode. It's in my secondary systems. You really do see that by season 6 and 7 that they were writing so much better for Beverly. To your point, Jim, they've been teasing this since episode 2, and we're finally get to start exploring some of that. So I really love that. I also really like that, as Picard and Beverly are working together to try to escape and get back to, I can't remember if it's the Prit or the Kesprit.
One of the two.
Beverly's working away on that tricorder, including, getting through the shield to push Picard through. I mean, she's so on it. I mean, this is a doctor and she's tactically able to do these things, and it just kind of goes back to that amazing word, and you'll keep hearing that from me, but she's just it's not just a medical doctor, but she's doing stuff that a security officer or an operations officer would be doing.
I'm so glad you called that out. That is a really great moment and shows her versatility and her how smart she is, and that's reflected in some of my picks. I just love that she's the one that figures out the tech, and then she sacrifices herself to make sure Picard gets through. So cool.
Yeah.
Awesome pick. Okay, Christos, how about you? What's your round 5 pick?
Okay, so my 5 words in a hashtag are Beverly's alternate reality take 2 and hashtag deja vu, and it's cause and effect.
Yes.
I have always loved this episode since it first aired. In fact, I wrote a paper on this in honors English in high school, just how complicated the time loop was and everything, but it's Beverly who has this sixth sense of something being wrong, to the point where it's her actually recording the voices that put them on to what's really going on and coming up with a plan for Data to send a message through. So definitely it was Beverly's keen intuition that really saved the ship in this one. And I remember when the Playmates action figures first came out, they all had a character, like a story on the back about something they had done. And this was Beverly's. It's like the original Beverly action figure
really
talked about cause and effect. And I remember being young thinking, what's wrong with this? That's not a Beverly episode, but it's so a Beverly episode. So, and yeah,
I've always kind of said it's like the secret Beverly episode that nobody realizes is think of cause and effect and think, oh, it's a Beverly episode. But
I rewatched it the other day. She's like in every scene almost.
I know. And she's at the crux of really figuring everything out, whether it's with Geordi's visor, the poker game, obviously where she records the voices. Yeah. It is a Beverly episode, and no one ever labels it or thinks of it as such. That's fascinating about the Playmates action figure. So cool. Amy, what's your take on cause and effect? A classic.
Absolutely classic. Like when people say, what TNG, if they've never watched it, like cause and effect is my go-to. Like you can watch it and not know anything and still enjoy it. But Beverly's role, and I'm with you, Christos, the longer I'm a fan, cause and effect is completely a Beverly episode as much as a time travel episode. And her breaking that sherry glass every single loop, like that sticks in my mind, and how she tries to change but doesn't. Like she's very cognizant, and she is the one of the ship, again, listening to her intuition. As you said, she is really the reason why they are no longer in that loop, and old as Frasier.
And there's even that great moment where they're thinking about I mean, if we don't figure this out, we're going to lose all this. And then Beverly's one that says, yeah, but this doesn't feel like we've done this before, right? I mean, it is a great Beverly episode. Fantastic. This is, by the way, this was my toughest cut, so I'm glad you picked it. Okay, my number 5 pick, I'm going to go with it's a pretty big outlier on my first pick. It's not the first time it's been on TrekRanks, but it was featured by our good friend Thad Haight back on episode 35 in our TNG Guilty Pleasures, and now we're going to talk about it again. This is a Wesley pick, 5 words and a hashtag. No more multicolored sweaters, hashtag acting no more. And the episode is Menage a Troy from TNG season 3. And this is an episode where Wesley becomes a full ensign. And listen, it's not a great episode. It's great for 2 things. We get the awesome Picard soliloquy to Lwaxana, which is fantastic. And then, but the main reason I like this, there's all these episodes where Wesley saves the day, right? Like Data Lore and Where No One Has Gone Before, The Naked Now, The Big Goodbye, The Enemy, the Game, The High Ground. He's all of these Wesley's at the crux of saving the day. And he does it in Menage a Troy. And I think this is my favorite of Wesley's heroics because it's very believable, very smart. And it's just always stuck with me. And that if you don't remember, it's at the end when Riker, Troy, and Lwaxana have sent Riker sent a coded message in the subspace static, and it's the Algolian ceremonial rhythms beat that Wesley picks up on right when he's about to beam away to go to Starfleet Academy. And of course, this is a great reason to keep him around for another season because he misses his transport to Starfleet Academy.
Check and mate.
Perfect. Queen's Gambit finished off with the Aldebaran exchange.
It's unfair. I couldn't concentrate with all that noise.
Noise? It's Algolian ceremonial rhythms.
And I just really, I love that moment because I just think it's really clever solution in the episode that he picked up on the Algolian ceremonial rhythms. And then in the final scene, Picard's just like, all right, it's time. We've seen so much from you. You're acting only in label. You're a full ensign, and I'm gonna give you that field promotion with all the commensurate responsibilities. And I just love that moment. And it's a really well acted between Patrick Stewart and Will Wheaton. So Menage a Troy, our first Wesley moment. Christos, what's your take on this one?
I just remember this episode as being a really fun episode. There's a lot of, it's kind of, whimsical in some ways. Of course, every time you have Lwaxana Troy, sprinkle in some Ferengi, and, you got Riker and Troy kind of doing their thing. So I've always thought of that as a fun episode. But you're right, Wesley does kind of save the day. And, if he was going to remain on the show, it was good to finally kind of ditch that acting ensign thing that was getting, after 3 seasons, it was a little bit of a thing. So. And at that point, yes, he had saved the day so many times that, yes, he deserved to get that pip finally. Fun episode, and I always really enjoy watching that one.
How about you, Amy? What's your take on it?
Well, Jim, you just need to tread carefully because I love Troy, and you're like, this is not a good episode. I'm like, I love this episode. It's got Troy in it.
Only because of the underlying, just the tones,
no,
right?
Yeah, I know. It's like not a good episode.
There's this weird,
it is.
I don't want to even say the words, but there's a weird perversion in this episode.
There is, and it's
so anyway.
It doesn't hold up well.
But Christos is right. It is fun, and there's a lot of cool, fun little things happening in it. So anyway,
and to my point, what I was going to say is that this episode, Menage a Troy, was one of the main things that got my one word for Wesley. He's curious. There was a problem and he was thinking through, and you see everyone else thinking through and trying to figure it out, but it's Wesley that just wouldn't let it go. And he misses his transport. He solves the day, which is all great. But it's because of that curiosity. He was unwilling to let this problem go unanswered. And I just love that about his character. And to point. Absolutely. He's very curious. He solves it. And again, his relationship and chemistry with Patrick Stewart, like Will Wheaton loves Patrick Stewart. You see that even now with the interviews and stuff, but so good. And almost to your point, Christos, I can see some nepotism here. Like, what, Picard's just going to make him an ensign? He hasn't even been to Starfleet Academy, but he's an ensign. So, so a little bit of nepotism, I'm just saying.
Classic. You're so right about that. Patrick Stewart, Will Wheaton, because you can see it in those interviews that are current now on the Ready Room. And I think of this scene when I see them kind of speaking so effusively toward each other. So I love it. He's deserving. He deserves to be an ensign. Come on. Okay, let's go to round 4. Amy, what's your number 4 pick for your top 5 Crusher episode?
Right. Well, I have my 5-word summary. What's the rule for that? Hashtag video games are bad. My episode is the game.
Yes. Yes. Wesley saves the day in 2 picks in a row.
Exactly. We have to have Wesley saving the day. And I did think of Menage a Troy, but I felt like his solution in the game was more appropriate. And in part because I have asked my students, I'm a math teacher, if you didn't know, I've asked my students to do experiments or, statistical surveys. And back in the day, early 2000s, every single year I'd have, and I was teaching middle school, I'd have these boys that they're going to prove that video games are fine and that they don't harm you in any way, shape, or form. And every year I would have these reports and I'm like, yeah, video games are not bad, but that's the social tendency that we get from. And so we get this in TNG with this game and how addictive it is. And I could see any one of my students doing something like Wesley. Well, let's investigate. Let's hook it up to a diagnostic from my, mother's medical bay or whatever. Like, I can see it was just so natural for him to come up and find the problem, get data, and save the ship. But to me, it was just so appropriate for his age. And I love Robin Leffler. I mean, Ashley Judd, but that's anytime I can talk about her. And I also really liked that their Wesley and Robin's relationship was age appropriate. Like even down to the time that they spent together, they were in 10 forward, they did things socially. And then then it was at their house or whatever. But they gave hugs and the kisses weren't overly sexy. It just was very age appropriate. That's what I loved about the game. And that him saving the crew seemed natural. Just because I've seen so many students try and prove that video games aren't bad. So.
I love it. I figured this pick might get mentioned. It's definitely on my secondary systems. I was just going to point out, this is amazing because I had it in my notes for Menage a Troy. The Susan Sackett and Fred Bronson are the story by credits for both of these episodes. Susan Sackett was Gene Roddenberry's production assistant for years. So they have 2 story credits and they are the last 2 episodes that we just picked. So that is,
what do you know?
That is very cool. Christos, what's your take on the game and Wesley's heroics?
Well, it's always funny. The first thing I think of when I think of the game is Riker's humming around, gets the ship in trouble,
Yes. It's not a lie.
Yeah, but and probably not the first time, but anyways. No, I like this episode. I really like the way, when Wesley came back to the show as a cadet and later, more mature Wesley just was so much better, I felt, than, younger, kind of awkward Wesley. So you could definitely see, and it was really kind of good for Wesley. This is, I think, his first episode back after he leaves in the final mission. And you see, like, just, it's been a little bit more than a year maybe. And he's just grown up so much, and not just the way he looks, but also his maturity. And you see him definitely acting, obviously more independently in this episode to help solve the problem. And I love how he, you said, gets with data and, they come up with a solution and they get it fixed. But, this is another fun episode to watch for me. And like I said, I really enjoy Wesley in this episode.
And Robin Leffler. So, okay. We love her.
Yes, we do.
Christos. Okay, what's your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick is Wharf and Cargo Bay Accidents. And hashtag is not in my sick bay, Missy. It's ethics.
Love it.
This is like one of my quintessential favorite Beverly episodes. Not necessarily because she does anything crazy in this episode, but her ethics and her morals and, her values, she just sticks to it. And I think Amy talked about that a little bit in the beginning here. She's just unwavering. And the way she takes on Dr. Russell in this episode and really calls her out and challenges her. It's perfect. The monologue that Beverly gives at the end of this episode, you put your research ahead of your patients' lives. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a violation of our most sacred trust. It's just chilling. If you actually look at the script, it's by far the longest anyone has to say in this episode. And it's that last monologue. But it's Beverly through and through. It's a fun episode. You have the other storylines, I think, keep this episode enjoyable, but this is by far, I think, really showing us who Dr. Crusher is.
This is an awesome, awesome pick. It's such an underrated episode. People forget about it, but then when it comes up, everyone's like, oh yeah, that one's really good. Not because the Beverly side is incredible and amazing. And then the Worf side is really clever because the finale on the Worf side where Riker says, okay, yeah, I'll do what you said, but I can't be the one that brings you the knife. It has to be Alexander. So go ahead and do it. Yeah. I love that swing. But in terms of Beverly, her confrontation with Dr. Russell is so good. Yeah. I just love the end when she's just like, I'm not going to get drawn into a hypothetical argument with you. Your research, no matter how much she had welcomed her on board the ship, she says, your time on this ship is over. You're relieved of all duties and not going to be operating. She's just absolutely so committed there. It's an incredible performance from Gates. And I love this pick. Amy, what's your take on ethics?
Yeah. When you say ethics, you feel the fierceness that is Crusher. Like she is going to protect Worf at all costs and does her best. And you're right. Her ethics are on point. And what's interesting is that you can be on point and you can be right. And still, the other doctor performs that operation and Worf does walk again. So was she right? Was she wrong? Yes, she was right. Definitely. And that soliloquy at the end of the episode, she is right. And just, you feel that fierceness. And Gates McFadden in the acting and ethics is one of her best in the series, I believe.
She says that you gambled, he won. And, I mean, it's just such a good episode. And I learned a few things about this episode that I wanted to share. First off, the script called for Dr. Russell to be a Hillary Clinton type. And this was in the 90s. So I thought that was interesting. And I also thought she was very well, and right down to the hair. Yes. And I always thought one thing, little problem I have always had with this episode is I thought Picard and Beverly scene together where Picard basically says, well, maybe you need to do this. I feel like it's almost out of character for him. Like he's comes to Worf's side almost a little too fast, or to the other doctor's side. It almost seems a little bit out of character for him. And that conversation with Beverly is what I was kind of noticing this last time I watched it.
I was just going to add that I love how Beverly absolutely welcomes this person onto her ship with just open arms, just like absolutely a compatriot, another expert, a fellow doctor that, she can befriend and connect with. But as soon as she gets a whiff of what she's really doing, she has no compunction to to stop her. So really, really brilliant. Absolutely great pick. Love it. Okay, let's go to my round 4 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. USS Pasture Captain ain't playing. Hashtag the doctor's in charge. It is Beverly Crusher as captain in All Good Things from TNG season 7. And okay, All Good Things is clearly not a Beverly episode, but I just could not delete it from my list. I love Beverly in this episode. I think it's really very plausible version of her in the future, and they even kind of touch on it a bit. This future in Star Trek Picard, which I always like, not Beverly per se. Hopefully in season 2. But anyway, the big important part of this episode takes place in the future on the bridge of a ship under the command of Captain Beverly Crusher or Picard. And I just love that. It's a really, really cool moment. And seeing her in command in Descent was great. Descent is definitely an episode I considered picking as well. But I just love having her on her own ship where she's in charge. She's an awesome captain. Her crew is responding to her. All these scenes where she's totally in control. And in the end, she's the one that, gives Jean-Luc that one last mission, the opportunity to go on it. And then when things get, kind of dicey, she's the one that stands up to him and says she won't jeopardize her ship. And she's going to give him 6 hours. And when he confronts her, she calls him out. It's really, really good stuff from Beverly. And then a little bit of bonus. This plays to Amy's word describing Beverly, that she's just so warm-hearted when she reveals the diagnosis of Picard's aromatic syndrome. That is the best example of her, how she treats her patients. So I just love Beverly being such a big part of the exciting finale of TNG in this episode and seeing her as a captain. So I wanted to pick it. So All Good Things. Amy, what's your take on this one?
I'm so glad you picked that. And that didn't even come into my realm of existence. So I'm super happy. And you're right. Like, we wouldn't even have All Good Things. There would be nothing, because Beverly is the one to convince everyone that, yes, we're going to have one last mission. This is what Picard wants. And to know that she could have been, and in my mind, she was, right, captain of the Pasture, and she was definitely in charge. And like when she gave an order, those people, they acted on it. There was no, who is this? No, she's captain. She earned it. She deserves the respect that they give her. And yeah, when she's talking to Picard, I mean, you bring out the exact points that exactly All Good Things is with Beverly. So so glad you brought that up, because I didn't even think of it.
And it's a great reveal when they're saying we need a ship, and then Picard's like, "Oh, I've got somebody, I think," and then they eventually cut to, "Oh, it's Beverly Crusher's ship, and she's the captain." Super cool. Christos, what's your take on this one?
I love that you picked this one. I thought about it for a hot second, but I'm like, oh, there's better ones I could pick. But I love Captain Beverly Picard. I love that, that this thread that starts off in Descent Part 2 and touches a couple times in Season 7, we see that fully developed here in the finale. And you're right. I remember watching the finale first run and being so satisfied as a Beverly fan that she played such a big role in the finale, not just in the future, but in the present day. And they even explored that Picard and Beverly a little further than attached. They went further. She kissed him and all that stuff. And I just loved her in the episode. I thought, her acting was amazing. And, when she gives Picard the diagnosis, and, I loved seeing her be the captain of her own ship. I just didn't like seeing it get destroyed, but, overall, it's a great episode. And like I said, their use of Beverly was perfect.
Definitely a bummer when it gets destroyed. So.
Well, it's a cool ship. I think overall it's a really cool ship.
It's just a bummer that and at least I know the helmsman died when they were fighting. So anyway, this was a deep cut, but I just really love seeing her in that role.
Eat your soup, courtesy of a loyal establishment. Jolan True.
Okay, let's go to the soup round, round 3. Amy, what's your number 3 pick?
All righty. Crushers, a space age Quincy, hashtag a doctor no more. That would be Suspicions.
Of course.
Yeah. When I rewatched this, I couldn't believe how stark of a cold open that was. Like, Crusher isn't a doctor. What? She is our chief medical officer. She was head of Starfleet Medical, and she got relieved of duty. What in the heck is going on? Like, Suspicions is a wonderful whodunit episode with Beverly right in the middle. And so I love the cold open with her. And it's like, what? No, we associate her with being a doctor. So that was just crazy. We, of course, get the Ferengi scientist, which is a, contradiction of terms, as he even says. And we get this widening and broadening of Star Trek universe. We've got a Klingon, Vulcan, Ferengi, and Takaran, who are all interested in this metaphasic shield. And how amazing is this metaphasic shield will be used, right, in, is it Descent? I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And so we've got Beverly has this intimate knowledge with this metaphasic shielding. And then the writers were smart enough to use it in a later episode. And it's like, yeah, of course, Beverly knows how to do this. Of course, she's going to take the Enterprise D to the corona of a star. Like, of course. But I love this episode again, because it shows her other interests. And I think, Christos, I'm going to steal your word, amazing. Like, what can't she do? She is this scientific diplomat. She's going into fields that obviously not medicine and not mothering. And so we get another side of Beverly that I think Suspicions does a great job. It shows her leadership. She got everyone together for this little symposium. Like, she is doing it all. And I love Suspicions for that.
That is a fantastic summary. I'm so glad you brought up the metaphasic shielding and the connection to Descent. That was a great link. Christos, what's your take on Suspicions?
Well, first of all, amazing choice, Amy. And I didn't pick it because I knew you would.
Okay, good.
Because I just want to talk more Beverly so we can get more episodes in.
Yes.
So love this episode. First and foremost, I love how much time that Crusher and Guinan spend together in this episode, because that's a pair that you don't see very often.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that could have easily have been Troy, but we got Guinan. And just love everything you said, Amy. I love that she's in charge. I love that she's not intimidated by the Klingon scientist. I love that she gets physical to save her life on the shuttle at the end. I mean, she's doing everything from thinking to leading to piloting to risking her life. And, she just does it calm, cool, and collected. And she's so resolute in what she believes. She is willing to put her whole career on the line, and then maybe just go tell Jean-Luc what she did when maybe she didn't have to. I don't know. I always think, why'd you tell him you did an autopsy? Because she's honest.
Yeah. Uncompromising.
Uncompromising.
That's what she's gonna do.
It's an amazing Beverly episode, and it's also like funny. It's Beverly really. She's being a doctor, but it's more being a sleuth. Little Nancy Drew type in this episode, and I love it.
Yeah, it's an awesome pick. It's quintessential Beverly. Definitely was on my secondary systems, and yeah, there's just a lot of great things. I love the Ferengi in this episode. It's one of the first times you kind of start branching out on the Ferengi. So fantastic pick. All right, Christos, what's your soup round pick?
Okay, I am really going out on a limb because it is the soup round, and I'm going for a stretch here, but I'll land the plane, I promise. So my 5 words in a hashtag are: she can do it all. Hashtag biggest revelation in Trek history, and it is the chase from season 6.
Ooh, this is a deep cut. I love this. She's at the center of this. I didn't think of this. This is great.
And there you go. That is in part why I picked it. First off, this is one of my favorite all-time Trek episodes. This is just a fun scavenger hunt type episode. It's pure Star Trek. I love that there's like this trio of Picard, Crusher, and Data working to solve this mystery in this episode. It's very much like Kirk, McCoy, and Spock to me. And Crusher is doing things that are well beyond medical in this one. She's working as Picard's confidant. They're working on this mystery together. And for me, it's kind of how Beverly should have been written for the entire series, and they were only figuring this out later in the show. The Doctor played such a big role in the original series, and it was so wishy-washy the way TNG got off the ground, and I feel like they finally got back to that footing here toward, the later seasons. And you just see, Beverly working with Picard to solve this mystery that's really important to him. And of course, we get that amazing payoff at the end of the episode that still to this day makes me cry every time I watch the end of that episode. And the hologram comes out and you find out that everybody's linked. But, I love that Beverly is a big piece of this episode. She's a big piece of the puzzle. And she kind of puts them on to the idea that all these genetic codes link together to form a puzzle. So she does kind of help advance the story. And there's even that part in there when she gets the duty of trying to project the star courses for 4 billion years of movement. I'm like, why is Beverly doing this? Oh, it's because they need Data to be in the next scene and 10 forward with the Klingons, so he couldn't do it. But I'm like, why is Beverly doing this homework? Anyone else should be more qualified, in astrophysics to do this. But, Beverly's going to do it. But hey, it's because she's Beverly and she's amazing.
Well, it's that DNA tie-in. But I really like your point with how TNG didn't really utilize the Doctor, or really had such a different use of the Doctor in the early parts of TNG compared to TOS. And in the later seasons, they really did start using it more in this way in a number of episodes, including my next pick. But I love this. This is a great, great deep cut pick. I didn't think of it, but she is really at the middle of solving this mystery of the chase, which is just a fantastic episode. Amy, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, again, you guys are like blowing my mind. Why did I not think of the chase? I don't know, but I'm definitely going to rewatch it and look for all of these awesome Beverly moments. Again, what can't she do? She's amazing.
Incredible. I always say this because I have to. Norman Lloyd, who plays Inspector Galen, still alive. He's like 106 years old or something.
Wow.
He's amazing. He's a legendary actor. And he's still going as of 2021 here. So, okay, let's go to my round 3 pick to close it out. 5 words and a hashtag. The Borg collect their dead hashtag. He's not dead, at least not yet. And it is Beverly from iBorg, TNG Season 5.
Oh, good.
And right away, Beverly is the only one that's standing up for Hugh. She's uncompromising. Here's a patient. Here's a person that needs help. And she fights to bring him back to the Enterprise when Worf is literally like, kill it now. I mean, that's literally a verbatim. She and Geordi end up kind of working with him and give Hugh his name. And when they're having the meeting and they're talking about ways to kind of weaponize Hugh, she just says, she says plainly, she actually says, we should be very plain about what we're doing. We're annihilating an entire race. Mm-hmm. Beverly is awesome. And the great quote, when I look at my patient, I don't see a collective consciousness. I don't see a hive. I see a living, breathing boy who's been hurt and needs our help. This is how she works. And in the end, she's the one, when all's said and done, she makes the point when they're about to say, okay, we agree with you, Beverly, we'll let him go back. What if Hugh, the individual, doesn't want to go back? She's always kind of stirring it up with with those thoughts of just making sure that her patients are being protected. This is peak Beverly for me. She's unflinching, uncompromising in all of her views, and she's just making sure her views are heard and seen. And I love it. Her approach is the one that the crew ends up embracing because they know she's right by the end of this episode, and it gives us Hugh. So iBorg, I love Beverly in this episode. Amy, what's your take?
Yeah, and when you say how she fights for Hugh. Like, and you have to understand, she's the one who took out the Borg implants of Picard. Like, she's seen the devastation that is the Borg. And even she is willing to just look at the individual. The individual may not be the entire collective. You look at the patient, you cure the patient. Everything else, be damned. I'm sorry. And that's Beverly. That's what a good doctor does. Like, this is such an amazing pick. I love it. Thank you.
Couldn't summarize any better than that. That's what you want in your doctor. Trust me. Christos, what's your take?
Amazing pick. You guys both said it. The way she advocates for Hugh in this episode it's amazing. And you guys just said something I've never occurred to me is, why wouldn't they have explored, deborging Hugh? I mean, the way he later is deborged, in Picard, or like they've rescued a Borg at this point. Right. They could actually rescue him and go through the process of trying to remove his implants and help him regain back, I think, his humanity. I think he's human. But amazing pick. I mean, Beverly, from the opening scene is advocating for him. She's, you have to see Picard and Guinan both kind of come around on this topic, and it's a controversial decision. Doing the right thing is very controversial. I mean, he gets in Descent Part 1. It comes back, I think it's Admiral Nachea that's kind of like saying you should have sent him back and annihilated the Borg. You made the wrong decision. And so it's kind of funny to have it looked back as the wrong decision. But, ultimately it kind of reminds me a little bit too, the way we talk about like Beverly going over and over again, sticking up for Hugh and advocating for him. It reminds me a little bit of Discovery, of kind of like that We Are Starfleet. Beverly's just, we are Starfleet. This is not who we are. This is what we do. And we're not going to annihilate a race, and we're not going to send this kid back to, we're not going to just leave him here to die. She's all about doing what's right, and helping others to see that.
A great summary. And the nitpicking nerd in me would say that at this point, they really didn't. The reason they deborged Picard was because he had been assimilated so recently. So they hadn't quite developed yet how they were going to do it with anybody else until Voyager 7 of 9. And then, of course, Star Trek Picard, which was so great seeing Hugh again. A great summary. I love this round of picks. Really, really good snapshot of Beverly. Let's go to round 2. See if we get any more Wesley love here in the final 2 rounds. Amy, what's your number 2 pick?
All right. Well, for my number 2, I'm going to highlight both Beverly and Wesley for a small moment, but mostly Beverly. So my 5-word summary and a hashtag: Will/Odan fits the bill. Hashtag thrill of a trill. That would be the host.
I love it. This is a good one to do both because there's some great moments with Will here.
Yeah. Exactly. And the moment that I love, and just to give you a little bit of background, like I was raised by a single mother. And so to see Beverly have the discussion with Wesley where she's like, I've been seeing this guy, things might go. How do you feel about it? Like she goes to Wesley. It's the first time that she has been interested enough in another person to even take to Wesley, which I think is very valuable. Like my mother may have dated, but I didn't know about it until it was like, oh, I'm getting a stepdad. Like, so I appreciate that Beverly was, very aware of when to introduce and when to have the discussion with Wesley. And she does it perfectly here in the host. And I love Odan. I love their chemistry on screen together. I love that for being a romance of the week, that it lasts a little bit longer, because even in the episode, they talk about that he was on the Enterprise for at least 2 weeks, if not 3. And so there's this time to develop. It's not just, a romance of the week, even though it is, but we get this time. And there's just this beautiful chemistry that's wonderful. And Beverly falls in love with Odan, discusses it with Deanna, which I love, but is willing to take the risk, but then it just doesn't work out. And I think that it's that background of humans, of where we're going to spend our time with one person, but the Trill is different. And so they're going from body to body to body where we're just not used to it. And poor Beverly just doesn't even have a chance to catch her breath. Like, she falls in love with Odan. Then it's in Will, one of her best friends. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't even imagine loving someone that's like my best friend that I had it's crazy. And then to, again, change bodies, like, that's a lot to keep up with. And I appreciate how honest Beverly is. She's like, I can't keep up. And that's where I'm at. I do love you, but I can't keep up. And so that honesty that she has with her feelings, with the situation, and with Wesley, I think makes for a wonderful episode.
I love Odan too. I think they're so good together.
They're my favorite.
They are.
Romance of the week.
They really are good together. It's totally sold, totally believable. And I love that Wesley ties into this because there's some really good moments between mother and son in that regard. Christos, what's your take on the host?
Really good pick there. I love this episode for a couple of reasons. First off, I give Kate McFadden a lot of credit because she's like 8 or 9 months pregnant during the filming of this episode. Right. So she really kind of pulls that off probably when she probably wasn't feeling the most sexy. What she goes through in this episode, the roller coaster of emotions, and she kind of still holds it together. And I know she kind of gets this episode at one point was a little controversial because, when the symbiotes finally put in a woman at the end, it's like, does Crusher reject her because, it's now, would be more like a lesbian relationship. She doesn't make it about that, but I think we see the history later in Star Trek that when a symbiote changes bodies, there's some things that change. Like, the difference between Jadzia and Ezri was huge, and it was the same symbiont. So expecting Beverly to, kind of stick with this, stick with Odan after he changes bodies, it's not far-fetched for her to be like, no, you're not even the same person, really. You've got a taste of the same person, but you've changed. And I think that's, this was the first time we saw the Trill, so they were probably still, obviously ironing that all out. But, and maybe you're right, that is a very sweet kind of, thing with, Wesley in this episode, and it's a really good tie together of the two characters. It's Wesley's not in this one. This was later in season 4. I'm getting another episode. I'm getting Transfigurations in here. I'm sorry. Similar thing.
Wait, is Wesley not in this one? Am I thinking?
I think we're thinking of Transfigurations.
Because that's the one where he's sitting with her and says to her, someone's interested in you.
Yes, that's the episode.
Okay. So I watched both of them.
I think you're right. This is so good.
I'm so sorry.
No. Because they're very similar episodes. They're very similar.
That's definitely the scene I was thinking of. So that's not in this. That's not in this episode. So this is a strictly Beverly episode. So
yeah. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like,
okay. Anyways. Thanks for setting me straight, guys.
No. Christos, thanks for setting us straight. That's good.
No, I was like, wait a minute. That's late season 4. He was already off the show.
Yeah, good show.
But no, they're both great episodes. So that's another episode that made my secondary system. So just a quick shout out to Transfigurations.
I really like him.
He does have a certain charm, doesn't he? The entire medical staff has commented on it.
You seem a little taken with him yourself.
He has a strength and serenity that I find very attractive. And yet he's vulnerable. I guess I find him intriguing.
Seems like there's a little more to it than that.
Is this your way of asking me if I'm getting romantically involved with him?
You said it, I didn't.
My feelings towards him aren't romantic. Exactly. I mean, I know that the doctor-patient relationship can sometimes create a false sense of intimacy, but this different. There's an almost spiritual connection. I guess I'm not making any sense, am I?
I think I understand.
Well, Transfigurations is definitely on my secondary systems because I love that episode. I've picked it a lot of times on TrekRanks. The one thing I'll say, I always felt they played it really well. I get why some people wanted to see something different in terms of Beverly's final decision when the third host has Odan. But I think they played it really well to make it about, she was just about the body hopping. It's not about that it was in the body of a woman. It was about, yeah, I'm not prepared right now where I'm at to accept a symbiont changing bodies in terms of me in a relationship. I think that was actually a really, really good way that they presented that. But I understand why some people wanted to see a different representation there. So I get it. All right. Awesome pick. All cleared up. A Beverly episode, the host, Christos. What's your number 2 pick?
All right, I'm going in for an obvious one here, and I'm calling this a joint Beverly and Wesley. And so my 5 words in a hashtag would be anyone else would go insane. Hashtag here 1 minute, gone the next. And it's remember me.
Yes.
I think for most casual Star Trek fans, the quintessential Beverly episode. Yeah. You know, in a rewatch, of course, you know, first off, Wesley has everything to do with why she gets in the bubble, but it has everything to do with, well, not everything, but a good part to do with how she gets out of it. And to talk about it from the Wesley point of view first, you know, he gets her into this mess, but I think the crushing guilt, you know, pardon the pun, that he feels for getting her into this warp bubble and knowing that, you know, that bubble is shrinking. And if he doesn't get her out, his mom is going to die and he will have done it, basically, is really weighing on him. And I can see where, you know, when the Traveler shows up and he's trying to get her out, the stakes are so much higher because, you know, you've got this guilt playing at you. Meanwhile, you got to concentrate on what you got to do. And I think the Traveler does a really good job of helping him calm down and focus. So, and, you know, at the end, you know, Beverly does get out. So that's a really good Wesley aspect of this. From the Beverly side of this, I mean, wow, to be in a world where everything's changing, people are disappearing and nobody remembers them, and questioning your sanity and not losing it. You know, I mean, I think anybody, like I said, anybody else would go insane. Beverly really kind of holds it together. And then when she finally realizes that it's the universe and not her that is messed up, she really starts to critically think her way out of it and eventually arrives to the solution. And I mean, once again, amazing. What else can she do? I mean, she literally figures out that she's trapped in a warp bubble and figures out what she needs to do to get out. And that's just mind boggling to me. It's really well written episode and one I can watch over and over again.
It's quintessential Beverly. You're so right. And this is definitely both. I mean, Will's a huge part of this. Another one where, well, he kind of causes the problem, but then saves the day with the Traveler. This is all-time great Trek. It's one of the most popular episodes of TNG. People just love it. Amy, what's your take?
Yeah, Christos, I can't believe you didn't say the quote. Come on now.
I know.
You can't leave us hanging like that.
No one said it yet.
If there's nothing wrong with me, maybe there's something wrong with the universe.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with me. Maybe there's something wrong with the universe. Computer, what is beyond the mass energy field?
Sensors cannot penetrate the field.
Here's a question you shouldn't be able to answer. Computer, what is the nature of the universe?
The universe is a spheroid region 705 meters in diameter.
I love going to STLV and every year at the TNG panel and they have, okay, if you want to ask questions, right. Literally every year someone's like, I love when Beverly Crusher says this and had this aha moment. Like, but it's true. And we hear it a lot, but it is very true. And to your point, Christos, like, I would be questioning myself, like, why don't these people that I know my friends? What's going on? Where is everyone going? That doesn't even seem logical. Something's wrong. And I would not be so confident in myself, at least in the beginning, like she was. I mean, by the time that I'm running the ship with me and Picard, I would figure out there's something wrong. But in the beginning, like Dr. Quaice, where did Dr. Quaice? You should have logged that with our, all visitors go through Worf. And it's like, no, I did do that. No, you're wrong. And she's so self-confident that's what gets her through the episode. And that's something that I love about her character.
Every actor would love to have a line like that affiliated with them. I mean, it's one of the most famous in Star Trek. Classic stuff. Great breakdown. All right, let's close out round 2. Our first duplicate, and you've heard these words before, except it's 4 words in a hashtag. You gambled, he won. Hashtag, not all of your patients are so lucky. And it is ethics, Christos's round 4 pick. I love Beverly in this. I talked about it a little bit. I'll just close out by saying uncompromising. For me, this is quintessential Beverly. I just love, I said before how she welcomes Dr. Russell on board, but then she quickly sees through her, and she's just an opportunist with an ego who's trying to make a big splash by cutting corners. And Beverly's just not having it and cuts her and says, we're not going to let you skip traditional treatments and just play guinea pig with patients. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. We summarized it already pretty well.
You aren't even going to acknowledge what I did for him, are you? You just can't admit that it was my research that made this possible. I am delighted that Worf is going to recover. You gambled, he won. Not all of your patients are so lucky. You scare me, Doctor. You risk your patients' lives and justify it in the name of research. Genuine research takes time. Sometimes a lifetime of painstaking, detailed work in order to get any results. Not for you. You take shortcuts. Right through living tissue. You put your research ahead of your patients' lives. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a violation of our most sacred trust. I'm sure your work will be hailed as a stunning breakthrough. Enjoy your laurels, Doctor. I'm not sure I could.
It's for me, it's Gates McFadden at her best in terms of her acting and the script. Fantastic. Christos, Amy, any other thoughts on ethics?
I will just point out, I also, you talk about her acting and the scene where she has to tell Alexander that her father didn't make it, and Beverly enters in and she's crying. Gates McFadden just acts the what out of that scene. I mean, she's so heartfelt and sorry, and she's even sorrier, I think, because she took that risk with Dr. Russell's technology, and at that point he lost, gambled and lost, and now she's like, this is exactly what I told you would happen. And so she's feeling even mad at herself, probably, for letting herself go along with it. So yeah, that was probably one other comment I didn't make earlier that I could have.
Amazing performance. Amy, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just going to lump it all together because in this episode, I consider Beverly to be fierce. And another one, she's fierce in Iborg. Like, she is defending and standing up for her patients. And another one, symbiosis. Like, she's wants to help these people so bad. Like, those are the 3 episodes when I think of fierce Beverly. That's what I think of, because she is so outspoken, and her ethics and what she believes is right, it's undeniable. She's a wonderful, the best doctor. Yeah.
That is exactly why I love her. And great symbiosis shout out. Didn't think of that one. Okay. Let's go to, she's really good in that one too. All right. Round one. Amy, what's your number one pick?
All right. 5 words and a hashtag. Who's going to call my bluff? Hashtag a woman's game. This is my compilation of poker. And I love it. Love that Beverly is playing poker with all the guys. And she is playing poker more often than Troy. So she's like the woman at the table with all these guys, Riker, Worf, Geordi, Data. Like she's holding her own. And she really does. And even in quality of life, like she understands the game inside and out because she's going to bet those guys to shave their beards and she's going to go brunette. And I would have loved to have seen that, but we never got to because they got called away.
Doctor, it sounds to me like you feel that beards are nothing more than an affectation.
I do. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, women wear makeup and nail polish. I just think it's time that you men admit it.
My beard is not an affectation.
Oh, well then you wouldn't mind shaving it off.
I could lose it in a minute. I've just gotten used to it.
Okay, then why don't we up the stakes a little? And if I win, all of you shave your beards off.
Wait a minute. What if you lose? What are you going to give up?
I'm open for suggestions.
Well, I've always wanted to see you as a brunette.
Oh, I did that once when I was 13. I couldn't change it back fast enough.
It makes me even more curious.
Fine. If one of you wins, I'll become a brunette. Are we on?
Yeah, we'll take that bet.
Looks like you have the hand to beat, Commander.
200.
I'm in 200.
Geordi.
Huh?
This is the captain. We have arrived at the Tyrant system. All senior staff to the bridge.
Wait.
I'm sorry. You heard the captain. Duty calls. I guess we'll have to do this some other time.
And so she's enjoying her friendship. She's cultivating. She knows the game. She knows how to gamble. But she also knows when it's not a game, like in Cause and Effect. She's like, no, Data. The next card you're going to pull is a queen, 10, jack, right? Whatever it is. Like, she's like, all right, we're done playing game because we got to figure this out, what's going on with Cause and Effect. But I just love her addition into the poker game. And so that is my number one pick for Beverly.
This is big time. A Beverly compilation poker pick. Is Quality of Life the episode you want to highlight? I love that. It's so. And
Cause and Effect. Like, there's so many.
There's so many. I love it. It's
All Good Things.
All Good Things. She's it's so good. There's so many great moments with Beverly playing poker. And she wins the big hand in
Cause and Effect. I think she
Cause and Effect.
Yeah,
because she knew he was bluffing. Yep, love it. Christos, what's your take on Beverly playing poker?
Amy, very, very clever, and I love you for this. It's so perfect. I'm going to blow you guys' head away with something. So, if you go look on YouTube, there is a video called Beverly's Poker Face, and it's literally Beverly playing poker with Lady Gaga's Poker Face going as the song.
Oh my
gosh. And
gosh.
it's all the best Beverly poker moments over again to Poker Face. Obviously, this is a thing, and Amy's not imagining it. So, yes, but I just love that Beverly is there with the boys, and and for me, just being a big Beverly fan, it was great to see her being used and being pulled into this, and even just if it's contributing to a scene, even if the episode's not about her, and she's always good, and you see her very much playing the game the way you would expect Beverly to, the way has Amy described. So great pick.
Spectacular. We love cheating on TrekRanks when it results in more Star Trek, and that's exactly what that pick did. Christos, what's your number one pick?
All right. I think maybe this might be another obvious one, but my 5 words in a hashtag are Commander Beverly Crusher in charge. Hashtag, did you forget I passed the bridge officer's test? And it is Descent Part 2.
I'm so glad you picked this, and at number 1 too. That's impressive.
First off, I can remember watching this episode first run, and I don't know if I was in the 10th grade or 11th grade or something like that, but loving it. Beverly being in charge finally, I always knew she was the commander, and I saw those 3 pips, and it's like, well, she never really, that doesn't really mean anything for her, but it finally did. And, and when she gets her first shot at the captain's chair, she knocks it out of the park. I mean, she never loses her cool. She leads and mentors in this episode. She uses, to Amy's point earlier, knowledge of the metaphasic shields. Yeah, I had a hashtag here that I didn't use with hashtag metaphasic shields for the win as an alternate. But, to get her out of this, she mentors Ensign Tate, who ends up having the solution to the problem, and if she hadn't taken the time to mentor this ensign, who knows how that episode would have ended. But, just Beverly being large and in charge, never showing even a moment of second guessing herself, not flinching one bit. And, at the end of the day, everyone gets through it, and she destroys the Borg ship. And my only regret to this episode is that there's not a final scene where Picard takes back command from her and comments on what an amazing job she did. You know what I mean? And that would have been the icing on the cake for me.
That's now my headcanon. I love that. That's really good. Awesome pick. Sorry to cut you off. Amy, what's your take on Descent?
Yes, absolutely wonderful. Everything that you said. She's in command, and we just love it. She really takes control. She's owning the bridge. Like, that's her space. Brilliant leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Beverly stuff is one of the reasons I rate Descent pretty high. I like it a lot. And Beverly's amazing in it and super cool. Love it that we got to talk about it. All right, let's close it out with my number 1 pick. For this one, it is all 3. I've got all 3 Crushers featured and 5 words and a hashtag. I was angry at you, hashtag, but not anymore, sir. Not even a little. And the episode is The Bonding, TNG Season 3. I get for clip just reading that line, thinking about it, because without a doubt for me, this is my favorite Crusher episode in terms of Wesley Crusher. And mostly because for me, it's the best performance from Wil Wheaton as Wesley. This is some heavy stuff he's got to do, and he really nails it. Sometimes young Wil Wheaton wasn't always the best actor, especially in contrast with, when you're sharing a scene with Patrick Stewart, it's not the easiest thing. So that's not a criticism. So, but in this one, the beginning of the 3rd season, he's clearly a more experienced actor. He's more comfortable, and he just nails this performance. There's a ton of heart and emotion in it. And so there's 3 key Crusher scenes. First, Wesley's on the bridge when he hears that Marla Astor has died, and he realizes right away, you can see in his face, that Jeremy Astor's about to go through exactly what he went through when he lost his father. And then at the very end, he has to talk to Jeremy with Picard there, and he, really opens up to him and tells him for the first time that he was angry at him, not for telling him his father was dead, but because he led the away mission. And just Wil Wheaton just crushes both of those scenes. But my favorite scene in this episode is this really powerful moment between Beverly and Wesley when they're talking about Jack Crusher and how sometimes that his memory overwhelms you, and then there's other times where you struggle to even recall his face, and it's just beautiful. It's emotional, and I was gonna read a quote, but I'll play the clip for everybody right now.
Do you ever think about him, Mom?
Your father? Sure I do.
Sometimes I can't even remember what his face looks like. It scares me.
It happens to all of us, Wes. Sometimes I can't get his face out of my mind.
Today it's like I can see it all as clearly as if it were yesterday. I can remember the way Dad looked when he hugged me goodbye. Captain Picard's eyes when he came to tell us.
So you just know it's really special when a show takes the time to have a scene like this in it. It's really soft, and they give it the appropriate weight that it deserves. It's incredible. I love it. Super heartfelt. And just great stuff from Gates McFadden and Will Wheaton. Amy, what's your memory of the bonding and Wesley and Beverly talking about Jack?
So kudos again to you for bringing up an episode that wasn't even on my radar. And interesting that you say those things, because I wouldn't have thought that. My first thing when I think of the bonding with Wesley is like, okay, well, Wesley's had this experience. Let's make him relate to Jeremy Astor. Let's make him relive these terrible feelings and emotions. Like, I thought that was sort of cruel, almost to this, Christos, like you said, like nepotism, like, well, he's the good boy. He's the one that's under and has this expectation. So we'll just make him do this. And they ask him and he agrees. And I just feel like that acting there, it's like he agrees only because he knows that's what's expected, but he definitely would not have done that in a million years. And so credit to Wesley for that. And that's what I think of when I think of the bonding. I just think that's torture to make someone relive that again, but yet it ended up being therapeutic for everyone.
And they know that it's, they're thinking about Jeremy, I think, more than Wesley. But This is what I referenced before, that, he had a tough go of it because his father died when he was a toddler, and he's gifted, right? We know this because the Traveler declared it, and it's obvious in the way he cuts through things at such a young age. They find out, so they basically just give him more and more responsibility and don't let him really be a kid at any point. Interesting way to look at Wesley. Christos, what's your take on the bonding?
Yeah, it's a really good pick. And sometimes I confuse this episode with the parts that are in the family episode of, going through Jack's things. But, I think my biggest comment is this: we needed more scenes between Wesley and Beverly, like the one we see in the bonding there. That wasn't done enough, and then maybe it was the fact that Beverly wasn't in season 2, and that kind of knocked things off a little bit. But, it's a really intense episode. And you're right, it is kind of like, it's almost like reverse nepotism. It's like, oh, look, my nepotism got me into this. I didn't want this, but you're right. He goes through it, and, it's really good that he's able to, talk to this kid by reliving it. But it does pay off in the end because it helps him deal with some of these feelings and able to, tell Picard what he's, about that and get that off his chest and help him to finally move forward himself. So it's, not all for naught.
Yeah, it's good at the end. It definitely helps him at the end. So all's well that ends well, except for Marla Astor. Okay.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Let's go through some secondary systems picks. Amy, what do you got?
All right. Well, already mentioned cause and effect and remember me. So I'm really glad because I specifically left them off because I knew one of you guys would cover them. So thank you. I also had family on there. Again, wonderful Jack and Wesley Crusher moment. And I put Sub Rosa on there because that's the infamous Beverly Crusher episode. And I did watch it, Jim, because it was homework and it does not hold up well at all.
It's what I always say about Sub Rosa is, hey, this one's written by Brandon Braga and directed by Jonathan Frakes. What could go wrong? Anyway, I'm glad. Clearly it deserves a mention at some level, and there are people who are fans of it. But
there are,
yeah. Christos, any episodes you want to shout out here?
Sure. I'm going to point out a scene in The Perfect Mate where Picard and Beverly are having breakfast.
Oh,
and
so good.
She just reads him to filth, and the fact that she can do that and get away with it. And my favorite quote, I say it all the time, that slave trader that you call an ambassador, and she just says it so like casually in her her conversation. I just love her at that breakfast because she just drops it all, drops her croissant, dropping the mic, and walks out. Mm-hmm. So good, Beverly.
Fantastic shout out. And some might say uncompromising. Perfect.
Yes.
I also have suspicions, which I'm glad we talked about that.
Yep.
I picked Symbiosis. That was mentioned earlier. And that also has that really famous Wesley Crusher just say no to drugs, Nancy Reagan thing between him. And so there's that, there's a little Wesley part in there with Tasha Yar.
Yes.
So good. Yes, that's a great double dip.
I love Conspiracy. Beverly Place has some 2 vital moments in that episode. The High Ground. It's also a Wesley Beverly type episode.
Yep.
And then I have Attached and Iborg, which we talked about. So I'm just, good stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, we just really got to highlight High Ground. That is one of my all-time favorite episodes. I love that. And they're using Beverly Crusher to show the other side. And what better with her warm-hearted heart, right? To show compassion on both sides of the story. Like, it's brilliant. Yes.
It's funny. I watched this. I rewatched this last, I think I just watched it last night or maybe the night before, because I was just thinking, Beverly's captured. There's not, how's that a Beverly being amazing episode? But I'm like, wow, wait a minute. She really takes on philosophical debate with her captor, and then also debates it with Picard, and even says, yes, I know Stockholm syndrome, and I know what's going on here. But this is wrong. You know what I mean? Or there's 2 sides to this, and she really does have a lot to do in a good way in this episode.
I love that you guys are talking about this. So I would have picked this if I hadn't just picked it on Top 5 Rescues, which we did a couple episodes ago, because I love this episode. I think it's one of the most underrated episodes of TNG. It's really smart in what it says about rewriting history and things like that. And there's also some great Wesley moments here too, and exchanges with the captor. But I was going to give it my special shout out because it has one of my all-time favorite Beverly moments in the cold open after the terrorist attack, when she is just like, I am going to help this person. You're not beaming me out. And Picard's like, nope, we're getting you out of there. And Picard looks at Riker. So Riker looks at Picard, just says, I don't want to be in the transporter room to greet her if you beam her up without her approvals.
Right?
I love that moment. I love that moment. It says everything you need to know.
Yeah, I love it. I just love that's what they think of her. She is so established and
exactly.
being, no, I'd rather just let her be down there. I don't want to have to deal with her.
Exactly. There's actually a callback to that in Iborg when she's trying to beam up Hugh and she says, I need him in sickbay. I need him. And he's like, no, you're going to the detention cell. And she's like, sickbay. He's like, detention cell, doctor. So Picard won that one. So. All right, my toughest cut was definitely Cause and Effect. I really wanted to pick that. I'm so glad you did, Christos. Another deep cut that I really considered picking because I think she's got a really big role in this movie that people kind of forget about. It's Insurrection, and I rewatched it again with an eye on her because she's really at the center of a lot of the final reveal with the Baku and the Sona. I just love her in this movie. I love her with the phaser rifle. She's an absolute badass on the scene on Baku. And I also wanted to highlight Wesley for Pen Pals because I love the scene where Riker puts him in charge of that team. And the one guy is kind of trying to influence him into cutting some corners. And Wesley's not really sure how to deal with it. And then talks to Riker. Riker tells him what to do. Wesley basically just puts his foot down with the guy, and the guy's like, okay, no problem. That sounds good. Really good lesson there for everybody watching. And let's shout out to the Dauphine, Wesley.
Oh, yes.
That's a great one. And I think that covers, I think we got everything else covered. Transfiguration's the high ground. Lots of Crusher territory covered here. Were you going to say something, Amy?
Yeah, so the Dauphine, I was like, okay, so that's a cute, Wesley romance, but the game with Robin Leffler, Ashley Judd, it just, hands down. But I did think of the Dauphine.
Yeah,
can't argue with that.
One other scene I'd throw in there, or part of, is in First Contact, where she's doing the sickbay escape. I love how quick she is on her feet and uses the EMH that's a really fun scene, especially getting to see her act with Robert Picardo too.
Yep, that's a great moment too, for sure. All right, awesome job. I love this little spin we did on the character series with the multiple crushers. Got some deep dive picks. Let's go through our regeneration cycle and recap our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, this one we're going to have you guys read off your picks. Amy, recap your 5 picks.
All right. Number 5 was attached. Number 4 was the game. Number 3, suspicions. Number 2, the host. And number 1, Beverly's poker playing.
Beverly's poker playing. So you had 4 Beverly picks, 1 Wesley pick.
Yes.
Which is about how I expected it was going to go. Christos, how about you? Break down your 5.
Sure. Number 5 is cause and effect. Number 4 is ethics. Number 3 is the chase. Number 2 is remember me. And number 1 is descent part 2.
I love it. And we are counting remember me as a double. So you had 4 Beverlys and 1 double pick. And then my 5, I had Wesley and Menage a Troy. Round 4 pick, all good things. My round 3 pick was Iborg. Number 2, ethics, our only duplicate. And number 1 was the bonding and how it featured all 3 crushers. So a few statistical breakdowns. We had 1 duplicate with ethics, which is a great one to feature twice. Our season breakdown was pretty all over the place. We had nothing from the first 2 seasons. So young Wesley did not get any love there. But we had 2 from season 3 and 2 from season 4. 3 from season 6 and 7, and season 5 led the way with 5 overall picks. And there were 11 standalone Beverly picks, 2 standalone Wesley picks, and 1 for both, and 1 with all 3 featured from the bonding. Nice little breakdown of stats, but as we do every week, we have been hit by a temporal distortion. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The temporal distortions are fracturing space-time throughout the ship.
Cause?
Unknown.
We know the cause, Mr. Tuvok. It's all that amazing feedback that we continue to receive from our listeners here at TrekRanks. And this week's temporal distortion has sent us back to episode 105 and our top 5 scenes in a corridor. We got a great voicemail in from Patrick Carlin, who is at PJC4774 on Twitter. He has an awesome list with a ton of great picks and deep cuts and even a few secondary systems picks. So here is Patrick Carlin's voicemail for top 5 scenes in a corridor.
Hey, TrekRanks, this is Patrick Carlin, a.k.a. PJC4774 on Twitter, and I've got a list for episode 105, top 5 scenes in a corridor. Number 5, 5 words. Data doesn't get the joke. Hashtag escort Commander Riker to the brig. That's the end scene in TNG's Gambit Part 2. He just cracks me up every time. And I love those episodes too. I know they're often overlooked when it comes to TNG, but I think they're good. Number 4, 5 words. Keep your shirt on, Lieutenant. Hashtag not quite ready to have my molecules compressed into a data stream. Yes, the first scene we get on the NX-01, Malcolm and Travis walking down the corridor, checking out the transporter while everything's bustling around them. Malcolm's all frazzled because Starfleet keeps sending them the wrong supplies, and Travis just can't wait to get out there. Number 3, 5 words, and I have 2 hashtags for this. Motivated strictly by patriotism. Hashtag number 1, remember when you fire that thing, you're aiming it at a Klingon. Number 2, hashtag number 2, I'll try to keep that in mind. We have the Warrior Part 2, DS9, Dukat and Garrick, when Garrick shows up to help defend the It&apos Council members against the Klingon invasion of the station. Anything with Garrick I just love. He's one of my absolute favorite characters. Number 2, and this is the first one I thought of when I first heard of the topic. 5 words. Farewell to an old friend. Hashtag Vulcans do not dance. Oh wait, yes they do. It's Tuvok's goodbye dance for Neelix in the end scene of Homestead. That scene makes me cry every time, and I have no shame whatsoever in saying that. Number 1, and this is definitely my number 1 because I absolutely love this episode. I'll say I have to take the hashtag first. Clever fiendishness. 5 words. And remember, you're the queen. Brad Chaotica from Voyager, Janeway and Tom's corridor briefing scene as he's filling her in on all the stuff about the program, and Janeway's expressions throughout that scene are just absolute gold, especially when he hands her the pad with the specifications for the costume. She just looks at it like, what in the hell have I gotten myself into? I've got a couple of secondaries here, too. DS9 is the adversary when it looks like Eddington is the changeling until the real Bashir breaks out in a dramatic shower of sparks, prompting dramatic shocked expressions from everyone until the changeling Bashir books it out of there. Voyager is Renaissance man when the Doctor is on the run and Tuvok corners him when he's disguised as B'Elanna. You wouldn't shoot a pregnant woman, would you? And then he runs up the wall and over Tuvok, grabbing his phaser and stunning him. Discovery is the Sanctuary when Saru and Tilly are discussing ship's business during a corridor walk, and then Saru mentions the ongoing matter, that is, what should his warp slogan be? And then finally, Lower Decks, Season 1 finale, no small parts, when everyone is running to the armory, and Mariner kicks and pulls out a bunch of wall panels, revealing all her handy contraband, calling back to the first season of the show, which was another corridor moment. Just how much contraband do you have stashed around my ship? I don't know, a lot. I love that show so much. I can't wait for Season 2. All right, thank you.
And thanks right back to you, Patrick. Appreciate that voicemail. It was really great. Especially the shout out for Data escorting Riker to the brig at the end of Gambit in the corridor. I love that one. I had thought about that, but didn't come up in the episode. And you had an excellent Trip Tucker impersonation. Keep your shirt on, Lieutenant. Brilliant stuff.
Just love Patrick. Hello, Patrick. Anyone knows anything about Star Trek knows Patrick.
Patrick Carlin knows his Trek for sure. It's his first voicemail. I'm really excited we got it. So once again, those picks, more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal distortion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great picks here at the TrekRanks podcast. Keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter or at Enterprise Extra so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Crusher episodes or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of Trek Ranks. And on the next episode of Trek Ranks, this is kind of crazy. We haven't actually done a standalone TOS topic in 3 years on Trek Ranks. 3 years. That's nuts. I'm a huge TOS fan. We did do the Twilight Zone episodes topic, which was kind of a de facto TOS. There was a lot of TOS on that. So, but we haven't done straight TOS since we did episode 26 in April of 2018. So next week for episode 109, we are diving back into some guilty pleasure episodes. We're doing our top 5 TOS guilty pleasure episodes, and I can't wait for that. So Amy and Christos, if you had to choose one TOS guilty pleasure episode to talk about, what would it be, Amy?
Oh my gosh. Guilty pleasure.
You know,
I'm going to pass it to Christos and then I'll come back.
It's that kind of episode that you like, but you kind of maybe think other people don't really give it the credit, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe you think it doesn't really deserve it, but you still love it. Whatever. Christos, what do you got?
I'm going to go with Amok Time.
Ooh. Well, that's a fantastic classic episode of Trek. What's guilty about it for you, Krista?
I don't know. I mean, it's just the idea that they would find a way to pit Spock and Kirk to fight each other. That's kind of like, it's like, okay, come on, writer. They're like, let's come up with a storyline where they have to fight. So, but it's kind of really cool the way they do it, and it's a lot of fun. And I love how, Bones actually comes up with a solution to the problem. So
and not just fight, Spock kills him. I love it. Great take on it. Amy, how about you?
Okay. Yes, I have one now, and I can't believe I didn't come up with it at the beginning. I really do enjoy Spock's brain.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
I think it's okay. First of all, we have this women's society. Okay, go women.
Yep.
And the intrigue of trying to restore his brain, I find it so fascinating. There's so much going on in that episode. And I love the number of times that they say Spock's brain. It's fun to count. Did I mention I'm a math teacher?
I love that.
A drinking game?
Right?
And it is fair. The end of this, the scenes with the Doctor operating are pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Or at least kind of a high level sci-fi concept, you know?
That was one episode where, I watched and I was like, oh, I like this. And then I went into the fandom and was like, oh, people don't like this. That's weird.
That's so great when that happens. I love it. Fantastic job. Huge thanks to Amy Nelson and Christos Giannaris. Great to have you guys both on the show.
I was wondering if you could show me how to access these subspace communications logs.
We're going to do that right now, Neelix. So any final Trek subspace communications either one of you guys want to relay before we depart? Amy.
You guys, thank you so much for having me back on. I absolutely love doing all of this homework. It's a great podcast. And if you want more Star Trek, please check me out on Galaxy Class and All Good Things.
Love it. And thank you for doing the homework. I know that's always a big part of coming on Trek Ranks. Christos, hope it was fun for you, man.
It was amazing. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that we just demonstrated to everybody why Beverly Crusher is better than Dr. Pawlowski.
I could not agree with you more, man. I could not agree with you more. All right. Thanks, everyone, for engaging with us again here on episode 109 of the Trek Ranks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Captain, there has been an incident. A bomb has been detonated by Ansata terrorists.
Your security status?
Vulnerable, sir.
Transporter room 3, log on to the away team, prepare to beam them back.
Yes, Captain. Sir, I've recommended such a course, but there are several wounded, and Dr. Crusher is insisting on attending to them.
I understand. Picard to Dr. Crusher.
Go ahead.
Doctor, Commander Data has informed me of your situation.
I already know what you're going to say.
Doctor, will you at least
The
allow me
longer we argue, the longer it's going to take me to say.
Doctor, you are endangering yourself and the away team.
Captain, I am trying to put life back into a wounded body with sleight of hand. I'm not going anywhere. Data and Worf don't have to stay. Crusher out.
Transporter room, do you have a lock on the away team?
Aye, sir. Shall I transport them?
I don't want to be in the transporter room, Degreater. Commander Data, hold your position until the Rutian medics arrive.
Aye, sir.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire Trek Ranks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
Away team, prepare to return to the ship.
Captain, we can't leave him here. He won't survive.
I think the captain understands that.
I don't.
The Borg usually collect their dead.
He's not dead.
The transmission...
He's not yet.
The transmission that we intercepted was probably a homing signal. We have to assume they're on their way.
Let me at least stabilize his condition. Give him a chance of surviving until they get here.
Your concern is noted, Doctor. But any intervention on our part would alert the Borg to our having been there.
I'm afraid we've turned that corner already.
Kill it now. Make it appear that it died in the crash. Leave no evidence that we were ever here. Security measures must be taken before we beam it on board.
Thank you, Captain. Standing by.
Mr. Data, notify security to prepare a detention cell. Carter Riker?
Go ahead, Enterprise.
We are transporting you directly to the detention cell.
I need him in sickbay, Captain.
The cell, Doctor. Whatever equipment you need will be brought to you there.
Very well.